members of Congress don't always agree on everything, but they agree on this: the stock market can be very profitable. The stock portfolios of dozens of Congress members outperformed the market in 2024. Democrats saw their portfolios increase 31%, while Republicans went up 26%. They both beat the S&P 500, which was up 24%. This is according to a new report from trading trackers at Unusual Whales. 5 members of Congress more than doubled the value of their stock portfolios last year. Stocks owned by the husband of Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, went up nearly 71%. Pelosi, no surprise, has defended congressional stock trading, a hotly contested issue. She said members should be able to participate in a, quote, free market economy.
9 other lawmakers outperformed Speaker Pelosi. According to the report, Representative David Rouser of North Carolina's portfolio posted the largest gains at 149%. The report comes just weeks after President Joe Biden supported a ban on congressional stock trading. He said in December, "Nobody in the Congress should be able to make money in the stock market while they're in the Congress. I don't know how you look your constituents in the eye and know because of the job they gave you an inside track to make more money."
All right, so I've got to say, that statement from Joe Biden, I took it as a little bit of a dig at Nancy Pelosi, because she's sort of been the infamous member for her consistent ability to outperform the stock market, and was one of the architects of Joe Biden being pushed out from his re-election campaign. So I thought that timing was pretty interesting, but this is obviously a bipartisan problem. There was a recent interview that my friend Batya Ungar-Sargon did with Dan Crenshaw, where he basically had a meltdown on camera about the idea that Congress members should not be able to trade individual stocks. They should only be able to do, index funds, portfolios, etc. And he was like, well, I don't make any money, so too bad, so sad. And then he went on this social media spree attacking people on X and what have you. But to me, this seems pretty common sense, right? These are people who have access to inside information, particularly in regards to legislation that's coming down the pipe. They have lobbyists in their office telling them the conditions of their industries, and they're going out and making tons of money, outperforming the S&P 500 consistently on the stock market. I think it's completely ridiculous.
Things that make you go,
Right?
Right? I mean, we're going to agree 100% on this, Amber. As a public official, I had to divest. There's no reason why members of Congress shouldn't as well. I mean, we have all of these ethics codes and provisions. We literally have a Congressional Ethics Office, which may at some point turn into something named something else. But it just makes, it is common sense that if you have access to insider information that you may benefit from, then you shouldn't be permitted to continue to benefit from it.
Exactly. I mean, you have members of Congress who have heavy investments in the military-industrial complex while they're voting to send, weapons and aid to places like Ukraine and Israel. You have people who conveniently dumped a bunch of additional money into pharmaceutical companies before the first case of COVID had even been publicly reported in the United States. And over again, there's all of these interesting coincidences that don't seem to make much sense unless you consider the fact that they were trading on insider information. I mean, I'm not accusing anybody of anything here except to just point out the connections. And I think everybody can reach their own conclusions based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to call out one other thing that you mentioned, though. When a member of Congress says they don't make any money and they represent the people of America whose median income is maybe a third of what their annual salary is, I mean, that's a problem in and of itself, this disconnect between what an ordinary everyday American would consider to be a good salary earner.
Yeah, I think that's completely true. I mean, you talk to people who are members of the working class, blue-collar laborers, et cetera, who see members of Congress making 6 figures and saying, well, what do you mean they don't make enough money? And I think there's some credence to the argument from their perspective that they have to pay for 2 places back home in their district and then one in Washington, D.C., which is a notoriously expensive place to live. And one of the sort of compromises I've been seeing from members of the populist right and left is, okay, we'd be willing to give you a slight pay raise so that you can afford your accommodations.
Housing.
But that means you have to ban stocks at the same time. So
Right.
You get your pay raise, but you can no longer trade individual stocks. And surprise, surprise, members of Congress don't seem too gung-ho about that idea.
Exactly. The other interesting thing, Amber, is that when you start to peel back the onion, some members of Congress have, for example, represented private sector entities before as consultants. And so what sort of recusals do they have in place to make sure that they're not then helping to benefit their friends that are out there in the world? I mean, these are exactly the kind of questions that I think that we should be asking.
Yeah, totally. And it's a classic revolving door situation where they go off, they make money on the stock market, and then they continue to make money in the private sector by having these connections to government, to former staffers, to whoever took over their old seat from lobbying groups. And one of the proposals I've seen floated that I think is a great idea is to ban former members of Congress from joining lobbying firms for a period of time after they leave Congress, whether that's 5, whether that's 10 years.
Yeah, a cooling off period.
Exactly.
I think that's pretty common sense.
Yeah, so some of your connections, some of your influence starts to wane before you go and join those companies with your quote-unquote expertise. But yeah, in the meantime, we have people just completely trading on power and influence, and it's not really about any actual value they add to the company besides the fact that they have this title next to their name and the individuals on the Hill who they got to know through their time in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, Amber, I have no problem with a former member of Congress going out into the world and, being successful in whatever avenues they choose to be successful. I think that the sticking point is just while they are sitting in their seats, while they're serving the American people, there are definitely some guardrails that don't exist right now that really should.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, we are going to keep reporting on this, of course. Nancy Pelosi, best stock trader of all time, better than Warren Buffett. We have a lot more to cover here on Rising. We'll be right back after this.